On a freezing night, a poor black woman hears desperate banging at her door, something she's learned to fear in a world that treats people who look like her with suspicion. But when she opens the door just a crack, she sees a man covered in snow and a little girl burning with fever in his arms. She hesitates because the last time she trusted someone, racism cost her everything. Yet something tells her this moment will change her life forever. Who is this stranger, and why does helping him uncover a truth far bigger than she ever imagined? Comment and tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Maya had grown used to quiet nights on the edge of town, too used to them maybe. Her small cabin sat at the end of a lonely, snow-covered road where the world often felt heavier for someone who looked like her. Racism had shaped too much of her life already. The job interviews where she was not the right fit, the neighbors who locked their doors when she walked by, the one emergency call she made that officers questioned her instead of helping. Still, she tried to survive with dignity, keeping to herself, working double shifts, and praying the world wouldn't take more from her than it already had. Winter made everything worse. The storm that night was one of the worst the mountain had seen in years, wind shaking the windows, snow covering every last inch of the road. Maya had built a small fire and wrapped herself in the same blanket her grandmother once sewed by hand. She wasn't expecting anyone. People didn't visit her, not out here, and certainly not after dark. But even in her isolation, she felt something creeping in the air, a sense that the night wasn't going to pass quietly. She noticed the wind shift, the flicker of shadows outside her door, and the sudden stillness that made her heart thud in warning. It brought back memories she tried hard to bury, especially the night she was tricked by someone who had weaponized her kindness against her, someone who saw her as an easy target simply because she was a black woman living alone. That fear never truly faded. It lived in her bones now, shaping every choice she made. And yet, beneath all that fear, a softer part of her still existed, the part raised to help others, even if the world rarely helped her. She didn't know it yet, but before dawn, her life would collide with a stranger who carried his own secrets, and one decision at her doorstep would alter everything. The storm grew louder, pushing against Maya's windows like it wanted to break inside. She tried to calm the uneasy feeling in her chest, but her body remembered danger better than her mind ever could. She had lived through enough racism, enough targeted suspicion, enough moments where simply existing as a black woman made her a threat in someone else's eyes. That history had taught her to pay attention when her instincts whispered. Then came the pounding, sharp, frantic, echoing through the cabin so violently that Maya's breath caught midair. For a moment, she froze. No one ever came out here except trouble or those looking for someone to blame. Her heart hammered as she reached for the iron poker leaning beside the fireplace. She moved slowly toward the door, each step heavier than the last. When she peeked through the frosted glass, she expected the worst. Someone angry, someone dangerous, someone who looked at her and saw less than human. But instead, she saw a man barely standing, and in his arms, a small white girl limp from fever, her skin burning red against the icy night. Maya felt the old war begin inside her, fear on one side, compassion on the other. The last time she'd helped someone, her kindness was used against her. A stranger who smiled at her door ended up robbing her blind and reporting her to authorities when she confronted them. Authorities who believed the white stranger over the black woman without question. That night left scars deeper than any theft. So now, as she watched the shivering man and child, Maya's hands trembled. She wanted to help. The child's weak breathing made her chest ache, but helping had cost her too much before, and the reality was unavoidable. If anything went wrong tonight, the world would believe him long before it believed her. Still, she heard the girl's faint, rattling cough, and it cracked something inside her. With a slow breath, Maya unlatched the door. The cold hit instantly, cutting through her clothes. The man's voice shook as he begged for help, but Maya wasn't listening to his words. She was watching his body language, searching his eyes for deceit, studying every movement the way survival had taught her. He didn't look like a threat. He looked like a father terrified of losing his child. She let them inside. As warmth hit them, the girl whimpered, and Maya instinctively grabbed a blanket. She placed it around her tiny shoulders, but she never set the poker down, not yet. Trust was something people demanded from her easily but never gave back. The man whom Maya mentally assigned a common white American name to distance herself emotionally began explaining how their car had gotten stuck in the storm miles back. He said they'd been walking through knee-deep snow for hours. His clothes proved it, but Maya kept her guard high. She'd learned that even truth could be used against her. When she checked the child's temperature, her fears deepened. The girl's fever was dangerously high. Maya's years working with elders, caring for sick neighbors who trusted her more than the medical system ever did, kicked in automatically. Her instincts told her this little girl didn't have much time, but helping them meant taking a risk racially tilted against her. A risk she'd pay double for if anything went wrong. She heated soup, monitored the girl's breathing, and tried to keep the man in her sight at all times. Every few minutes, the storm howled violently, reminding her she wasn't just fighting fear, she was fighting nature itself. Still, something about the man's exhausted eyes and the girl's fragile state made her soften, just enough to set the poker aside. But just as she began to trust the moment, she saw the man hesitate before answering a simple question about where he came from. It was small, almost nothing. But in Maya's world, almost nothing had ruined lives before. And just like that, her fear began rising again, because this storm wasn't the only danger outside her door. It might be sitting right in front of her. Night bled into dawn with no sign of the storm letting up. Maya had barely slept, keeping vigil beside the little girl as she fought waves of fever. But it wasn't just the storm or the sickness tightening her chest. It was the man's strange hesitation, the way he avoided certain questions, the way he seemed to study her home with an awareness that didn't fit the story he told. Something wasn't right. And when the faint gray light finally crept through the windows, the truth hit her like ice water. He wasn't who he claimed to be. She discovered it by accident. When the man stepped outside to check the road, the wallet he tucked under his coat slipped to the floor. Maya didn't mean to pry, but survival taught her to look before trusting. The ID inside carried a name she recognized immediately, a wealthy businessman frequently featured on news headlines, and not always for the right reasons. A man whose company had been tied to discriminatory hiring practices, lawsuits from black employees, and communities harmed by his cost-cutting policies. Suddenly, everything made sense. The hesitation, the fear in his eyes, the feeling that he carried a dangerous truth. He wasn't simply stranded. He was hiding from something, or someone. And he hadn't been honest with her. Her stomach twisted. Was she in danger? Had she sheltered someone who saw people like her as disposable? Someone whose empire had contributed to the very racism she battled her entire life? Fear surged through her. Then anger. A deep, generational anger at how people like him, powerful, privileged, protected, always expected black women to save them, even after systems he built made their lives harder. But when Maya looked up, she saw the little girl stirring weakly, trying to sit up. The child's eyes, unaware of her father's world, untouched by the damage adults created, landed on Maya with a silent plea. And for a moment, everything stopped. Maya realized she stood at a crossroads. She could throw them out. She could call authorities who would arrive biased, judging her first, not the truth. Or she could choose to help, again, despite a lifetime of betrayals. Her voice trembled as she confronted him the moment he re-entered the cabin. She demanded the truth, the real truth, not the softened version he had offered. And for the first time since he arrived, his facade cracked. He admitted everything, his wealth, his fear, his attempt to hide his identity so he wouldn't be treated like a headline rather than a father fighting for his child's life. He confessed he didn't tell her because he knew how the world looked at men like him and how rare it was for anyone to treat him like a human being instead of a symbol. Maya listened in silence, fury and compassion warring inside her. Yet as the wind roared outside and the girl's small hand reached for hers, Maya understood the truth. This moment wasn't about wealth, lies, or past wounds. It was about a child's life hanging by a thread and a woman forced to choose between her trauma and her humanity. She took a slow breath, one that would change everything, and then Maya made her choice. Maya's choice that morning wasn't born from trust, it was born from strength. She tended to the little girl with steady hands, guiding her fever down through the quiet persistence her grandmother once called the kind of care the world can't take from you. As the storm cleared and the roads opened, an ambulance finally made its way up the mountain. The paramedics rushed the child inside, promising she'd recover fully because of Maya's quick actions. Before leaving, the man paused at her doorway, no longer hiding, no longer powerful in the way the world usually treated him. He looked at Maya the way someone looks at the truth for the first time. He apologized, not just for lying, but for living in a world where someone like her had every reason not to open that door. He promised change. Real change, the kind that didn't start with headlines but with accountability. And then he left, carrying both guilt and gratitude in equal measure. But the impact of that night didn't fade with the storm. For Maya, the encounter left a mark far deeper than fear. It reminded her why her life felt heavier than most, why every decision she made carried risks others never had to consider. She realized she had been surviving in a world unequal by design, one where her kindness could be punished, her caution misunderstood, her humanity questioned simply because of her skin. Yet she also realized something else, the power of her own resilience. Her act of compassion didn't erase racism. It didn't rewrite history, but it challenged the boundaries racism tried to place around her heart, and it reminded her that even in a world that often refused to see her fully, she could still define who she was, brave, wise, and unwilling to let hatred shape her future. The question that remained lingered like the fading echo of the storm. How many lives could change if the world learned to open its doors with the same courage Maya showed that night? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful, real-life stories.